In the dim light of a room perpetually cast in shadows, the story of Anneliese Michel unfolds like a modern tragedy, where the inexplicable and the earthly merge into an unsettling narrative. Born into a humble family in Germany, Anneliese spent her early years amidst devout faith and the routine of everyday life. Yet, from an early age, signs emerged that her destiny would be marked by forces beyond human understanding. As the young woman grew, strange phenomena began to manifest in her life. Those who knew her noticed subtle changes in her behavior, involuntary gestures, and a gaze that seemed lost in invisible worlds. In the silence of the night, when calm gave way to mystery, rumors spread among friends and neighbors, whispers that something dark seemed to dwell within her. Over time, the unease in the atmosphere transformed into a growing alarm. The manifestations intensified, convulsions, alterations in her voice, and expressions that defied all human logic became part of her daily existence. The community, caught between compassion and fear, began to regard the young woman with suspicion. Words mingled with prayers, and superstitions echoed an unshakable faith that clamored for divine intervention. It was in this charged environment of uncertainty and mistrust that her family, desperate for an explanation for the inexplicable, turned to the church. Faith, at times, becomes a bridge to the unknown, and in this case, the decision was made to call upon the priests, experts in combating what they described as demonic manifestations. Thus began a series of encounters intended to free Anneliese from what appeared to have an insidious grip on her being. The exorcisms were performed in an atmosphere charged with solemnity and reverent fear. During lengthy rituals, the priests, with chants and prayers in Latin, endeavored to confront the dark forces. Each session unfolded amidst an almost unbearable tension, where the interplay of sacred words and bewildering cries echoed through the half-light. The young woman, sometimes in a trance, seemed to be torn between two worlds, one tangible and painful, and another dark and oppressive, where the presence of another entity was felt with disturbing intensity. The narrative of those days is woven with episodes that, for some, bordered on the supernatural. There were tales of a voice that was not Anneliese's, of physical manifestations that puzzled those present, and of an unyielding conviction that an ancient evil had taken residence in her body. The priests recounted, with a mixture of fervor and fear, how each invocation seemed to open a rift between the visible world and the realm of the invisible, as the spiritual battle raged with every encounter. During the course of the rituals, the tension mounted and the community became increasingly polarized. While some defended faith as the only path to save the young woman, others began to question whether what was being experienced was nothing more than a mental illness. The dichotomy between the religious explanation and the medical interpretation created an atmosphere of uncertainty, where truth seemed to dissolve into a sea of conflicting opinions. Yet, for those who had witnessed those moments up close, reality surpassed any rational theory. As days passed, Anneliese's physical and emotional deterioration became ever more evident. The young woman, immersed in a suffering that defied logic and seemed to prolong endlessly, was consumed by the intensity of the exorcisms. Fatigue, malnutrition, and constant stress became inseparable companions. The faith that had once been her shield turned into an unbearable burden, and the clamor of prayer transformed into a stifled cry of anguish. With every session, the battle against the darkness appeared to gain ground, leaving an indelible mark on her body and soul. The culmination of this tragic spiral came on an unrelenting winter day. With her health pushed to the limit and her mind lost in a maze of visions and delusions, Anneliese became an enigma defying every explanation. The exorcisms, meant to liberate her spirit, seemed instead to have exacerbated the internal conflict, making the line between faith and despair increasingly blurred. The tragedy reached its climax when, after countless sessions, the young woman's body could no longer withstand the strain of that invisible battle. Death arrived to seal the fate of a life marked by the inexplicable. The story of Anneliese Michel, far from ending with her death, became a landmark that questioned the boundaries between spirituality and science. The subsequent trial of the priests and her family, carried on like an echo of controversy, opened a debate that still resonates in the annals of history. Questions multiplied: Was it truly demonic possession or the tragic manifestation of a misunderstood illness? Could faith itself have become a double-edged sword, capable of inflicting both relief and devastation? In the shadows of remembrance, the figure of Anneliese Michel emerges as a symbol of the struggle between reason and faith. Her story, recounted over the years in whispers and tales of mystery, continues to be a source of reflection and controversy. The exorcisms, which were meant to be acts of salvation, instead became a dark reminder of how the unknown can invade everyday life, leaving behind wounds and scars that defy time. Today, in an era of information and science, Anneliese's case is posed as an enigma that invites us to rethink the limits between spirituality and psychology. The chronicle of her final years intertwines with the unease of those seeking answers in the inexplicable, in a narrative that, beyond controversy, confronts us with the fragility of the human being in the face of forces that seem to surpass any comprehension. In every word, in every whisper, the echo of those days resounds, reminding us that the fine line between faith and terror can sometimes blur to the point of leaving no traces of light. Thus, the narrative of Anneliese Michel stands not only as a chronicle of exorcisms and suffering but also as an invitation to venture into the recesses of the mind and soul. An invitation to question the obvious, to explore the limits of what is believed to be possible, and to recognize that, at times, mystery dwells in the darkest corners of our being. In this way, the story of that young German woman transforms into a legacy that, even after so many years, continues to challenge reason and evoke shivers in those who dare to listen. In this account, the narrator's voice rises to give life to an incomplete truth, to a story where mystery and faith are inextricably intertwined. And as the shadows lengthen and the night takes over the silence, the echo of the genuine exorcisms remains an open question. What forces truly inhabit the threshold between life and death, between the human and the divine? The striking story of Anneliese Michel, told with the solemnity it deserves, continues to serve as a reminder that, sometimes, the inexplicable looms silently, waiting to be discovered at the intersection of faith and mystery.